Now the next step for this image has got to be to sort out that blue reflection on her face. Obviously the reason I chose this image is that this is a very appealing sort of smiley, happy, active pose. I'm just going to move these little palettes out of the way a bit here so we've got a bit more room to see, and I'm going to press the T key. Oops, I'm going to press the T key to hide this toolbar. So if you press T, that hides that toolbar at the bottom of the image as well. You can bring that back anytime you like just by toggling it with T. And you know, she's got such a sort of a playful, happy face here that I wanted to work on this image. But this blue reflection really is extremely unflattering and you know, a real shame for this image. So I wanted to see whether or not I could take that blue out and just return it to looking more like a natural looking picture. So I'm going to start by using the adjustment brush tool, which is this tool here. You can get at that on the keyboard by pressing the K key. And I'm going to use the advanced mode, but I'm going to start in the simple mode. We've got here in the list of things that you can choose to do to your image with this brush. If we've got this little switch here turned to the left, that lets us choose these effects buttons. So if we wanted to do an exposure darkening, we could choose that, and that would now become a darkening brush. If I wanted to do an exposure brighten, I could click that, and that now is a brightening brush. If I click saturation plus, it's no longer an exposure brush, now it's just a saturation brush. So that would increase saturation wherever I painted. If we put the slider to the right, it lets us see all of these sliders, and we can now do multiple different things with one brush. So one brush can be both an exposure darkening and a saturation increasing brush if we choose. So what I'm going to do in this case is I'm going to flick the switch to the left, and I'm going to choose a saturation minus, because I'm going to desaturate the colour that's already there. I want to take this blue out, and then I'm going to flick the switch to the right, and I'm going to choose a colour to put in its place. So I'm going to click on the colour swatch here, and I can choose a colour from the colour picker here just by clicking on the colour picker if I choose. But here's a little power tip for you. If you want to choose a colour out of the image or somewhere else on the screen, click on the colour picker and hold your mouse button down and then drag it off onto the image, and as you can see I'm now able to choose colours out of the image, and you can see the little dot moving around there in the colour picker. And that's picking images out of picking colours out of the image. And what I want is a colour that's from the cheek here, got a little bit of red in it, a little bit of pink in it, not too much blue. So as far to the right as I can manage. So that looks like about there. So I'm going to let go, and that's now locked in that colour, which is at H337 degrees and a 10% saturation. And we just picked that colour out of the image from a part of the image that wasn't too badly affected by the blue. So now I'm going to choose what brush I want to use. Now I can choose my brush size with this slider, or you can use your scroll wheel on your mouse, and that lets you make the brush bigger and smaller. I'm going to choose a relatively large brush. I'm going to choose 100% feather because I want this to sort of blend in nicely with the rest of the image. And then we're going to use the flow slider. Now I'm working with a mouse today rather than with a graphics tablet. I quite often use a graphics tablet because I like the pressure sensitivity that it gives you, so you can press harder for a darker edit or lighter for a less strong edit. You can have the same effect with the mouse using this flow slider. One of the great keyboard shortcuts in Lightroom, very, very useful. If you press a number key, it will jump to that as a 10% slot. So if I press 5, it jumps to 50% flow. If I press 7, it jumps to 70% flow. If I press 2, 20%. Now that's really useful just for controlling the pressure of your brush. And with my brush now, I've got a minus 100% saturation, I've got a colour chosen, and that is going to desaturate the colour that's there and replace it with the colour that I've chosen. So I'm going to start painting with my 20% brush, and I'm going to just keep my cursor moving over the image. So just sort of moving it around over the blue areas, and I've got to remember that the strength of this edit depends entirely on how long I leave the cursor there. So that's a pretty good start. Let's just hold the spacebar down to give us this little grab hand and click and drag to move the image around so we can see what we're after. And I'm going to just try and remove a bit more of the blue on the neck there and into the hair, and I'm not concerned about the fact that it's going into the hair. This is a relatively light edit because it's only a 20% flow, and I'm keeping my cursor moving, keeping it moving all the time so that I don't get spots. And once again, just moving a little bit more. And now let's just try and tidy up that bit of blue on the mouth there, and underneath the bottom lip. And there's a little bit of blue on that lip there, and also on the teeth. Let's just take that out. This is all using the same brush. Just take that all out. And it's starting to look pretty good. It's now this blue now around the eye almost looks like sort of eyeshadow. So let's take that off as well. And just clicking and keeping the brush moving all the time. And that's not bad at all. So it's just a little bit more around those edges. There we go. And I'm just occasionally using the scroll wheel on my mouse to make the brush bigger or smaller, just to give myself the brush size I need. And that's pretty good for that colour edit. So let's just zoom back out. I'm going to press the Z key to zoom back out. This dot here is the edit dot. If I mouse over it, you can see it highlights where I've done the editing. We can hide that dot by pressing the H key, and that makes the dot go away, just so that we can see more clearly what we're doing. And we can turn on and off this edit with this switch at the bottom here. You see it says turn off brush adjustments. If I turn that off, that's how it looked to begin with, and that's how it looks now that I've done those edits. So so that's, I think, a pretty effective way to remove that colour reflected colour cast. This video is an extract from an episode of Photo Walkthrough, an online TV show all about photography and digital photo editing using Photoshop and Lightroom. If you'd like to see more, head on over to photowalkthrough.com, where you can find all the old shows and subscribe to the new ones for free.